Profit with a Plan podcast. This is where you can get some great ideas to create your most profitable small business. Just so you know, financial planning isn't only for those that have a lot of money or run big companies. A workable financial plan is for us everyday small business owners and professionals that want to take and make great financial decisions that lead to bigger profits. So join me, Marcia, your certified financial planner and financial business strategist, each Tuesday for some smart ideas that can add more profits to your bottom line. I help ambitious business owners grow their profits fast using unique ways of growing income and spending strategies that produce bigger profits without killing yourselves trying to constantly chase clients. If you know of anyone that may be curious, share this podcast or let's chat to see what we can do together to create more profits in your business. So let's get on with today's podcast. I am so excited to have my dear friend, Barbara Cunningham of Loyalty Processing here with us. And we are talking about payment processing. Everybody is taking money in their business, so this is really important for you. So Barbara Cunningham is the owner of Loyalty Processing. She handles all of your credit card processing needs. She helps merchants reduce the fees, fears, and frustrations of accepting payments, delivering funds faster and exceptional, and I have to double explanation point that, exceptional customer service with Loyalty Processing. Barbara has 15 years experience in the industry and is a certified payment professional and an independent agent. So her loyalties are to her clients, not the bank processing. Loyalty Processing is also a member of the 1% for the planet and donates 1% of their revenues to organizations like Tree People in Los Angeles that help protect our fragile environment. Wow, that's great. Give back when you do really well. Welcome, Barbara.
Oh, hi, Marcia. It's great to see you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. As hopefully you know, most of my listeners are small business owners, and everybody in business is taking credit cards these days. So what's the best way to accept credit cards to make it hassle-free on either side of the transaction?
Well, so it all depends on the business and, are they a storefront or are they a website, or, if they take credit cards over the phone, if they're wholesale. So that's one of the things that we call and analyze with a company is what's the best plan for your business. We don't try to make everybody use the same thing. And that's what's nice about us is that we have forward-facing things. We have kiosk type things where the customer can check themselves out. We have gateways that hook up to almost every type of shopping cart you could possibly want. So we just discuss with our clients, what are your needs? What are your frustrations today? And then we come in with 2 or 3 different ways to solve those. Because the payment industry has gotten really sophisticated in that, remember, it used to just be that little standalone credit card terminal. There's just so many other offerings out there today.
That's wonderful. So if they're a service-based professional, say, let's give 2 examples if you don't mind. Say they are a medical industry professional, like a dentist or a chiropractor. What might you suggest for them as an offer for clients coming in?
Sure. So if they're an office where people are showing up with credit cards, then we put in a credit card terminal. A lot of times we'll hook it to a gateway because the gateway will add some additional information every time they process a credit card, and it'll get them a little bit better rates. So that's kind of an exciting thing for the for the dentist or the doctor. We also are engaged in the new surcharging plans where somebody can add part of the surcharging fees to the sale transaction, and it's all legal now. And so again, we talk to them. I have a lot of cosmetic dentists that surcharge because they don't want to absorb the fees any longer, and nobody's going to change their dentist over a very small percentage. So they're passing some of that fee back to their clients.
That's a great idea. I never thought that that was possible at the forefront. But then when you think every time you go to Arco and you stick your card in the machine, they say they're gonna hit you with a 35-cent fee because they're transferring that fee on to the buyer, which that makes total sense to transfer that fee on to the buyer when you're doing it, because the percentages can be rather stiff, especially in that medical world where you're either coming in at $100 or you're paying for a dental work that's, you know, maybe even $1,000 and you're swiping that on your credit card. That fee could be rather costly.
Exactly. And surcharging, those rules all changed about 3 years ago, and California fully accepted it just about 1 year ago. So it's legal in almost every state in the United States. There's still three holdout states that don't allow it, but we have a workaround for that also.
Nice. So let's flip the coin then, and let's talk about maybe a consultant or somebody who does offsite, not face to face, maybe doesn't have a storefront. What would the suggestion in the use of the credit cards be for that type of client?
So for that type of client, we'd use a virtual terminal. So that they would just sign into their computer and they'd go to a secure website where the virtual terminal would be set up, and they'd be able to process the payments through that. They'd be able to set up monthly billing if they wanted. And if they happen to be a QuickBooks user, we have great programs that plug into QuickBooks called like Barossa and Bill Genie. And both of those integrate seamlessly with QuickBooks so that you can use us, and usually Intuit, if you're using their processing, charges about 30% higher fees than we do.
Oh, wow, that's something we want to talk about then. So let's go into that. That was wonderful. It gives both types of businesses an idea of whether they're going to have a swipe terminal or whether they're going to have an internet base use of the credit cards, but they can still accept the credit cards and they can get those kind of recurring charges. So if you had a membership site or a payment plan that you're doing, even with the medical dental field, if you're doing a big service, many of them try and pitch you over to like Care Credit because they don't want to carry the load, but they want to get paid immediately. But as an alternative, if someone doesn't apply for Care Credit, a medical procedure could be charged on a reoccurring payment, a monthly swipe that is done automatically on the credit card service, and they're still getting it. Maybe they charge a little bit of a premium or an interest rate for that. So it is doable in both cases.
Right. We see a lot of cosmetic dentists and cosmetic surgeons that'll split the payment up into 6 payments and just bill you monthly for it.
Perfect. That makes it easier on us consumers trying to be able to fit the bill and want the service. That's nice.
And plus, it also gives them that consistent cash flow because they know what to expect for the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, that's good. Cash flow is king, and I'm saying that often when we talk. So that's great. So what are some, let's go into that QuickBooks conversation, because I think it's really important to make it hassle-free. You've got to have some systems in place so that you're not taking the data from one place and transferring it to another place, and that's where errors occur, if it can be seamless with your accounting software.
Yeah, so I have 2 great examples of QuickBooks users. One would be a small computer and iPhone repair shop, and they use it. And we use the plugin called Barossa, and it automatically pops up on their screen. They do their thing in QuickBooks, and then it sends it through Barossa and onto the processor. They never have to do an extra step, so it's very, very simple. We also have a B2B. We do business with the largest stand-up paddleboard company in the United States, actually in the world. And they're also a QuickBooks user. And so they've got to set up with their shopping cart. They've got to set up with their B2B phone-in orders from their distributors. And then they have actual terminals in their showrooms so that they can sell off sample boards and things like that. And all of it ties automatically into their QuickBooks. So we
Wow,
have
it
it all
seems,
set up behind the scenes.
I was going to say, it seems very seamless and it's all working so they don't have to say, okay, here's my receipt and let me enter it into QuickBooks or pay somebody to enter it into QuickBooks. It's nice that it translates in there. And that software is an add-on to QuickBooks. Does it work with any of the other processing software or any other financial softwares?
Yes, so again, we always ask the people, you tell us what software you're using. We do the back end research on who we can integrate with. And I can't remember everybody, right off the top of my head, but everybody integrates to somebody. Although
Perfect.
although that's not 100% true. Sometimes there are some companies that are proprietary. And, we'll still do an analysis for you. We'd still show you what we could do for you. And then you have to determine whether, you want to move off that software or not. A
Right.
good
Yes.
of that would be some of the big gyms that use a system called DAXCO. That's completely proprietary now. We used to be able to plug in and they stopped it. Um, so we've had a couple gyms who have come to us, and when they look at the savings that we can deliver, they say, well, we're interested. What do you suggest that's, powerful like this? And if it makes sense, we can make a move. And if it doesn't make sense, we tell them stay put, go for another couple of years, and we'll reopen the discussion.
Wow, I like that. And I think that that's something that was very attractive to me when talking to you and learning more about your business is the ethics that you use. Not everybody is designed to be a customer. And it's very important to be able to say, you know what, you're okay right now, or it's going to cost you too much to shift, and to be able to say, you know what, stay put and let's look at this a little bit like, later on. Because in that gym situation, holy cow, their processing fees must be ridiculous, because in any gym environment, you've got so many members and they're all hitting a monthly charge.
Exactly.
That's got to be a gold mine for you. And to be able to come in and say, look, I understand where you are, and right now it's not cost effective for you to switch over to us, but in a few years maybe it will be. That's impressive.
Yes, so we might have a partner, like we have a gateway that we use called PayTrace. And if we can find, let's say, 6 gyms that like to make a move, then we can have PayTrace write one integration and split that cost between 6 different gyms. And then instead of one single gym having to absorb that $30,000 integration, we can split it across 6. And then our savings becomes really important to the client.
Exactly. Wow. So what does something like that cost to get set up? Now, maybe it's a gym, or maybe it's something like a medical office or a consultant. What does a setup process generally cost when you're trying to either leave company A and go to company B, or just redevelop and come on to something like you?
So if you're a company and you're processing over $20,000 a month, and you just need something like a virtual terminal or a standalone terminal, there's no cost to you at all. We'll
Oh,
absorb all the costs of the equipment. You can keep it and use it free of charge as long as you stay our client. We also have, everybody does sign a 3-year contract with us, but the early termination fee is 0. So that means that if you want to cancel, you can cancel and there's no penalty.
wow,
So
that's nice. That says a lot for your service too, because you're saying, hey, we want you to commit to us for a while, but if at the same time, if you're not happy with us, then leave, right?
you have the ability to leave, and it's not us that requires the contract, it's our sponsoring bank that
Ah,
requires that they be committed for 3 years. And everybody has to have a sponsoring bank because you've got to have those fees protected from the time they need that protection of being in a bank bin. So we have to do what our sponsor wants, and they want a
sure.
3-year contract initially.
Well, you know
Um,
what? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's asking for commitment. It's asking for something, but you're also giving them the back door that they can get out, which is very nice.
Exactly. And I had a large client in New York City who they had been with me in the old company that I was in. That was a larger company. And then when I stepped out on my own, they said, well, we think you're a little too small to come with you right now. And I said, well, I mean, look at some of my big clients. I don't know why you think that, but if that's what you want to do. So they had somebody on their board that was with one of the big banks, and they chose to go with them. I said, well, just be careful when you sign your contract that you make them waive the early termination fee. And they signed the contract and they forgot that little piece of advice. And when they called, yeah, when they called me 1 year later and said, oh my God, our fees are so much higher, we want to come with you now. I looked at their contract, and to break their contract cost $12,000.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they're a very large school. So,
Wow.
So we help them with that. And we know that they'll never leave us again.
Fair enough. And I think I think like you mentioned in your bio that it's all about the customer service. You had given me some examples when we first met about situations where you've just done exceptional customer service for people way above and beyond. I think it was something like the client had come to you over some sort of fees, and then you fixed the fees for him, and he asked you something, and you said, you're no longer my client, but I fixed the fees for you, right?
Yes. So this was a client who'd been my client, and then they hired a new CFO. And so he changed processors. And sometimes that happens. I mean, he didn't know me. He decided to go with the company he used to work with. Then he got let go because he wasn't doing the best job. And they brought in an interim CFO. And she called me panicked about these chargebacks. And I said, sure, I'll help you with them. And so she gave me her part of the information. She gave me the permission to call her shipping people to get what I needed from them, the signed documents that, the packages had been delivered and signed for. And I just wrote it all up for her and submitted it because I could tell she was completely frazzled. And then I called her the next day to say, look, I took care of this for you. And she said, well, thanks. I knew I could count on you. And I said, oh, but by the way, do you know that I'm not your processor any longer? And, and she said, no, I didn't know that. I thought you were still our processor. And I said, no. And she said, well, why don't you send me over the applications this afternoon, and we'll take care of that. So
and I love that.
long-term.
You just stepped in and you took it and you did what was necessary because that's what was needed, and your client asked you for help. And then to come to find out that you weren't even their client anymore, that's an amazing story.
Yeah. Well, people who are fractional CFOs and move around from company to company, you always want to keep them on your side because you're going to wind up somewhere else where they're going to use you.
Totally. I love it. So let's talk about chargebacks a little bit. What's some of the best practices that small businesses can do to avoid or reduce those?
Well, so always if you can swipe the card or read the chip is the best way to avoid a chargeback because the card was present. But if you're in a card not present environment, which many business owners are, if you're in a wholesaling business or if you're in the service industry, you probably aren't seeing your clients face to face. You're working with them over the phone or over a Zoom call or something.
Right.
So we give you the tools. We tell you, to make sure that you're getting their street address and their zip code. You're entering that information and that you're getting what we call an ABS match. That means that we're getting a match, that they're giving you the correct information. We also tell you to make sure you get that CVV code, that either 3 or 4 digit code. And again, that you see a match on that. Let's suppose you don't have a match, or let's suppose it's an international card. at that point, we'll tell you to get a form that we can send you a copy of and have them authorize that transaction and actually do a signature. Or we might set you up with, if you have a website, or if you're using one of our virtual gateways, we'll set you up with an invoice so that you can send the invoice to the client. Client's going to click a live link and they're going to enter their own information in. Okay, so you're not touching their credit card. And so that really holds up in the chargeback arena because you didn't do anything. The client themselves entered the information. And so that makes it much easier to win the chargeback. So
Love it.
we go all these little rules and tips, again, depending on what your business is, and what your exposure is, we tell you how to bring your exposure down. On some of my, like you take a jewelry or an electronics store, after they run the card, we make them re-enter the last 4 digits of the card number. And then they get a little sign that that's a match. So for a high ticket items, that's really a good thing to have in place, because they have something that they could go out and resell, right? If they had a stolen credit card.
Nice. Yeah. That's smart. I think it's so important to understand it's not just what you're providing, whether you're in the medical world or in the service-based world and you're offering, your product or solution. It's not just that. You're running a business. You want to make sure that you're protecting yourself on your income side so that the money that's coming to you is lawfully yours. And so these are great little tips that help small business owners keep the money that they're earning.
Exactly. And we work with so many different types of clients. We know what to put in place for what type of industry. We know your risk rating. And like we just had a client this past 2 days ago, and his shop is closed on Mondays. And somehow, fraudulently, he had 22 refunds issued that day. Now,
Wow.
our risk department caught it immediately and said, shut that terminal down. Somebody has figured out how to defraud that terminal. And, so we shut them down and then we told them how to reprogram the terminal. And within 15 minutes, we had them up and running again.
Wow. And there was some protection factor for him. Did he lose those refunds that went out?
No. We could tell that they all came in not from his IP address, and so he was not liable for any of them.
Wow.
So,
See, I never even thought someone could hack your terminal, your credit card terminal, and steal that information and start running refunds. Or that's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, there's lots of crazy stuff that goes on, but there's all those bells and whistle systems, that we have built in to our processors, where they could see that happening. And so they also knew he was closed on Mondays, right?
So how did he do that, right?
Has a flag, so like, how could these transactions be happening? And then they saw, well, they're not coming from his IP address. And so they shut it down. So
Wow.
There was no impact at all to his business.
Just a little bit of a scare.
Other than 15 minutes of delay while we reprogrammed him over the phone.
I'm sure he was so appreciative of you guys coming in and covering his back, and saying, hey, you had some fraudulent, activity on your account. This is what we're doing, or even better yet, this is what we did for you.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, it was great that he wasn't exposed at all. There was all the transactions he settled on that Tuesday, he still got his funds Wednesday morning. We didn't hold the thing.
Hey, speaking of that, what's a common time period for when when your client pays and swipes the card or does the digital terminal? How soon is it customary to be able to receive and use the assets?
Okay, so in a card present environment, that's a brick and mortar store. okay, because they're swiping or they're reading chips, we can usually fund them the next morning. So
Oh,
they close their batch at 5 or 7 p.m., depending on the cutoff time with the bank, and the funds will be in their account the next morning. Now, if you're a card not present environment, your risk is a little higher. So we don't fund until the following day. So if you
okay.
close your batch on Monday, Wednesday morning, your funds are in your account.
Nice. So that's not too long.
No, so the only time it's long is when you do sales on a Friday and Monday's a holiday.
Oh,
Okay.
right? Like this one coming up, right? Oh, that's funny. So then you don't really get it until Wednesday, right?
Uh-huh. Right.
Right, but
Because they're
most businesses really shouldn't be living on a thin line like that, that they need those credit card processes in order to operate their business in one day. So that's financial planning that I'm going to avoid with all my clients. But that's something. It's nice to know that if you've got a big check coming in, and is there any dollar amounts that they're going to hold back for you? You know, like if you're at the cosmetic surgeon and you have a $10,000 procedure and they run it on the credit card, or is there any kind of delay on maximum amounts or anything that comes along?
so again, that's something that we put into your file when we board you. So I have a company who sells chicken wholesale. They set up chicken farms. Like, who knew?
Right. You find all sorts of businesses.
And they've been my client, and they had only been doing like $20,000 or $30,000 a month for years. And then purchasing cards happened, and they supply to the largest chicken grower in the United States. And so this company is now going to pay with purchasing cards, with credit cards, instead of with writing them a check.
Oh,
And so it was such a big change to their business, because now they're getting in transactions that are $50,000 and $60,000. So we just set up a system so that they notify me. I send it through to risk. We get a copy of the invoice, and the funds go out the next day.
nice. So if it is a large purchase, there's or something unusual that occurs, then that's something that is notified and you get the support.
Right. And I work with a couple of people who do big events. And so they'll have an event coming up, and they might have a weekend where they do process $100,000 or $200,000, right? During that 3-day weekend.
Right.
All we do is make risk we notify risk about that ahead of time. We tell them the venue where they are. Risk calls through and sees if they really have a room booked,
Right.
are they having an event? And then they don't even hold the funds a day. They just release them on their normal time frame. So we
Yeah.
work
So
with,
the speakers, yeah, if you're a public speaker and you're selling $25,000 packages into your coaching program, I mean, and you have a weekend, I mean that could easily be a $200,000 weekend. So yeah, I can imagine that.
so again, we know our clients really well. We ask them what their needs are, and then we tell them, if you have something that comes up and it's a surprise, like we have a big wholesale florist company that we work with, and they had somebody who had run their bill way up. They were a little bit behind on payments. And so they just said to the guy, look, we want you to pay it down before we release the next load of flowers to you. And so they put it on his personal credit card. So, I mean, it was a big transaction. It was a $42,000 transaction on a
Mm.
personal business card. That he just sent us through the invoices. We send it over to risk, and the funds didn't even get held, overnight. They just got paid the next day, because we do it in advance. We don't like surprises.
And I think that that's something that you're not going to get with a swipe, or you're not going to get with a Square, and you're not going to get with maybe even your bank. You're not going to have that kind of customer service that's going to help you anticipate the problems coming through and support that in a way so your funds aren't being held, you're not getting declined, you're not, I mean, even on a purchasing of our own business, if you're looking from the consumer, even the business consumer side, if you're making a large charge, the last thing you want to do is go to your vendor who you're making this purchase with and get declined. So it's that balancing of making sure that you as a receiver are doing well, but that your customers are being taken care of as well. And I think you just don't get that from the large, or not even the large, the swipes and the squares and the online companies that don't have somebody that you could pick up the phone for and go, hey, Barbara, I've got this big thing I'm doing, or hey, I'm going to be receiving this large amount of funds, or oh, I've got this new package or this special opening weekend, and I'm going to have a large amount of transactions that weekend. Can you just make sure that everything goes smoothly for me? You can't do that with those other companies.
Right, you can't. And so that's one reason that somebody like us is really a good fit for you, because we can tailor what you're doing and we can make the end processor understand your business and your needs. And we set it all up in advance. And I always tell my clients, if you have a question, just pick up the phone and ask me before you do anything. Or
before. It's not that don't ask me or don't ask for apologies or do it up front.
Right. Do it as if it's running a question in your mind, then ask me first, because I'll tell you how to do it the best way so we get the funding as quickly as possible. Great.
So tell me about your practice a little bit. What are you going to be significantly more than some of the processing? How do you compare to the other companies that are out there, or even the online versions?
So if you take our fees versus a Square or a Stripe, we can usually deliver an 8% to a 12% savings. If you're in the B2B arena, or if you're taking a lot of business cards, corporate cards, and purchasing cards, we can probably increase that significantly, because we'll get you the better pricing of those level 2 cards. So we're very, very competitive. I have a large book of business with the 4 biggest processors in the United States. I have a lot of clout, even though my company's only been around for 5.5 years. And I can call in, and I have a very large online retailer who's asked me not to disclose their name, but when I was bidding to get this, I went to 3 of my largest processors and I said, would you like these clicks? We can steal them from First Data.
and of course they're going to stand on their head to try and get them, right?
All right. So they gave me a little bit better pricing, in order to try to woo this account. And so those, again, because I work for multiple processors, those are things I can do that somebody who works for a bank or an individual processor can't do, because they're like an employee.
And you're more of a broker, right?
Exactly.
But then yet you've got a face in a business and years and years and years in the industry that you can come in and say, hey, I know how to adjust these problems. And I think that's a real value. Being from California, I've always used brokers. I've been in a brokering environment myself on the inside. And then it was so funny when I went to the South and I lived there for 5 years, the mentality of businesses and people were all, no, I want to go to the bank, or I want to work with the actual firm. And I've always had the mentality that brokers can offer so much more than going to the single person or the single company, the direct source, because they can shop and deal. Like you go to a broker for an insurance offer rather than going directly to the one company. You get more options that way. And by using a broker, and sorry if you don't like that language. I love that language. But if you go to a broker for your credit card processing, you're going to be able to be shopped and find the best solution that's going to be for your company, and not just the one that is offered by going directly to the source. And the negotiation of your larger companies and your power saves a lot.
Exactly. So that, and that's what we do. And we have certain processors that like certain types of businesses. So they'll maybe offer something to gain a bigger foothold in, let's say, that niche.
Love it. Love it.
We know how to balance that.
I love
And
it.
just a great thing.
Okay, so thank you. This has been incredibly valuable information. And I know that we're in a world that hardly anybody accepts cash. Even you go to McDonald's or Starbucks, nobody's using cash anymore. We all live on credit cards or some sort of non-cash transactions. So when we're running our business, we want to make sure we're getting every single advantage and every single loophole that we can use to increase our profits in that arena, in accepting our money in the best way, form, and shape. So I love this conversation, and I thank you so much for coming on Profit with a Plan podcast. How can we get a hold of you, and where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, so our website is loyaltyprocessing.com, and you can find all of our phone numbers there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Barbara Cunningham on LinkedIn. And you can call me if you want. My direct number is 213-248-6787, and I answer my own phone.
Yay, you're a real person. You're a live real person. And you're not going to have to click 5 and click 7 and wait for this, and then, oh, we'll call you back. Or you get somebody in a foreign country that is not understanding your situation. So I truly love having face-to-face and know that there's somebody there supporting me, especially if it's a very, very, very large portion of my income in running my business. And credit cards I want to know that I've got someone I can call. So this is an amazing opportunity and a connection for you. So anything else you want to share with us?
Sure. So, we're happy to do a free analysis of anyone's statements. So if you send us over via email a copy of your last 2 or 3 month statements, we'll go through, do a full side by side, and show you what we can do for you savings wise. If we can't do at least 8%, oftentimes we'll tell you to stay with your current provider, and we'll just ask you for permission to check back with you in 6 months to a year. And also on our website, we do have a little free report that you can get, and it's the 5 surefire signs that your processor is ripping you off.
Oh, that's great. And you know what? I think they are in many instances. The business owner just doesn't know, and they just accept, hey, I guess I have to go this way. And knowing that there's other options for you in your income to receive it in a quick and cost-effective manner, that's going to increase your profits right there. So I love it. Thank you, Barbara. I will make sure that the links to your website and where they can get this awesome report to find out if we're being ripped off will be on the podcast information. So thank you. And I just want to say thank you to everybody listening today. I hope you found an idea or two that you can put into your business to make you more in control over your money and more profitable. If you'd like to know specifically how to increase your own profits in your business, let's chat. I have tons of contacts that can help out. And my contact information will be in the podcast description as well. I am excited to announce my new book. It's entitled Big Profit Secrets Exposed. And it's all the tips and tricks that I use with my clients in my consulting practice that help them increase their profits. And I'll be on tour now through 2020 with this conversation, and I'd love it. If you need anybody to come speak to your organization, please hit me up. And also, if you subscribe to this podcast, I'll give you my special report, which are 3 hidden secrets to your cash flow that can grow your profits right now. So I'd love to hear back any questions, feedback, or ideas on shows. Please comment on the podcast and let us know what you think. And you can always reach me on my website, which is bellafinancialgroup.com. So you can catch Profit with a Plan podcast on any of your favorite podcast players. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with it. Thank you.